Hi, everyone. I'm George Castro, and today I'm going to be talking about the case for the enterprise desktop, not a thing I thought I'd be talking about at a CentOS thing. I work for the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. That's a day gig, but I'm here for my passion project, which is called Project Bluefin. It's part of Universal Blue, and I'll go into that a little bit. The CNCF part, though, is kind of very important to me, as bootc, along with Podman and a bunch of other things, were donated to the CNCF, which is a vendor-neutral organization. So it made me really happy that the thing that I was based on is now in a neutral thing, and part of my day job is to keep that healthy. So I love it. So what is Universal Blue? You might have heard of bootc. It is a way to basically take Docker files and make operating systems out of them. So if you think of an Nginx container, an Apache container, you do the same thing except with an operating system, and it uses this as a transport mechanism. So we are basically making a bunch of really, really large operating system images that kind of run on the bare metal itself. So it's I don't know. We'll get to that part later when I kind of talk about the practice part. But the organization we made is called Universal Blue. We make a bunch of these images. Right now, a lot of them are Fedora. We're investigating some CentOS ones as well, which we'll talk about a lot around the desktop. But we have server folks here, including Ben Sherman, who's on a boat in Puerto Rico dialing into this. So thanks for that. If you have heard of us, it's probably because of this project called Bazite. This is a custom image of Fedora specifically designed for gaming. So we had a few folks who grabbed Fedora and basically made a SteamOS clone, except community driven. So due to this and Fedora's nature, we're able to ship newer kernels on Valve's devices faster than Valve can. This has really exploded in the last few weeks, and it's just been a really amazing project to see a bunch of gamers getting into open source and things like that through this project. But that is not what I'm going to talk about today, but that is our famous image. A little bit about how big Universal Blue is. That left line on the left there is Bazite. It has about 30,000 live devices checking in every week. And underneath that, you see Fedora Silverblue and Fedora Kino White, which are the upstream Fedora variants. And then below that, you have Project Bluefin and Project Aurora, which are of the Universal Blue desktops. On top of that, as you can see, Bazite has really found some traction and is more popular than all of the other Fedora Atomics and their derivatives combined. So this really excites me because we're able to find a place where Fedora wasn't and taking it there. And if you look at the company metrics as well for the upstreams, you see that they're growing as well. So there's no cannibalism going on as far as I'm aware. We recently enabled our Savannah CRM metrics. So one of the things I do at the CNCF is we take measuring everything very, very seriously. So our contributor metrics and stuff is something we're very proud of. So we have about 25 core contributors. That's a tiny sliver there that says core on that engagement pyramid. And then it spiders off from there. As you can expect with gamery things, the people that just drop by to, get, hey, unbrick my Steam Deck or whatever, and then move on. It continues to be large. So we're definitely growing in terms of contributions and things like that. So it's starting to attract the right folks. And one of the reasons I am here is now that CentOS started to create official bootc images, your community is very much into automation, you're all the sysadmins, right? And I've been looking forward to getting this crowd into the bootc stuff, because when we started Universal Blue, we built all of this starting with 5 people and a Docker file. So I'm very excited in getting people into this stuff. So here's the project websites. I have 2 here. Project Bluefin is my Fedora-based one. That's a small dinosaur on the left. And we wanted to create a variant of that based on CentOS. And the code name for that was a Kilobator. That's the brown one. I love dinosaurs. I'm always talking about ecosystems and the importance of things like that. And it's kind of modeled after Carl George because I needed something to show just the sheer inertia of a top predator in the enterprise space. So when I'm talking about the Fedora one, we use the cute little blue dinosaurs, and the brown one is the mean one. You can tell by the look on its face. So we were hanging out at scale, and from looking at this audience, it feels like more people were at scale in this call that weren't in this call. Phil's here. Neil was certainly there, Davida, everyone was there. And I started to ask around because I had been making Bluefin for a while now. It's about 4 years old. And it's a result of 4 years of research. I spent about a decade at Ubuntu making Ubuntu desktop and server, so I kind of knew what I wanted. I just needed the technology to help me. So I was asking around. I was like, hey, look, man, I want to do an LTS. Carl, I want to do an LTS. I just got bit by a kernel regression in Fedora. I want to do an LTS. But your stuff is just so old, Carl. I can't normalize it in my brain. And he was like, well, you either get stable or you get the fresh stuff. And in my brain, I was trying to like, no, I want my cake and eat it too. So after discussing the Hyperscale SIG and things like that, I was starting to think, you know what? bootc just makes it so easy. Let's just build it and see what happens and see how it feels like driving a car. So this is Project Bluefin. It is a productized Fedora Silverblue, basically. GNOME desktop. I come from the Ubuntu side of the house, so I just put a dock on it and app indicators. I'm too old to fight with people about defaults and desktops and things like that. It basically is what I considered like a finished, more product-y based thing, and use Fedora more as a base image. We have a KDE one that someone is working called Aurora LTS. I don't have much to say on this right now because the author is cooking and would prefer to just keep cooking for a while. So I'm going to concentrate talking about Bluefin today, but keep in mind that this would apply to KDE or actually any desktop. Someone can make one of these. So what is Bluefin LTS is basically the same thing that we built on Fedora, but based on CentOS Stream 10. So I sat down with Carl and I said, man, I really want to take all this stuff and make a CentOS version, but we wanted to matrix it out the same way you would do an app container where it's like from blah, but then keep all the same stuff. So Carl got us a bunch of stuff into EPEL and things like that. At the time, Bluefin and Bluefin GTS, which is Fedora -1's version of Bluefin. So we make the current version of Bluefin, and then we keep one called the GTS, which is Fedora -1. The slang on this one is Grand Turing support, which is like in the middle between an LTS and a GTS. I know that none of this makes any sense. But they were built by me, and I'm a community manager. So I was literally copying files around with copy commands inside the Docker file. So Tulip went and we RPM'd all of the configs and all that stuff that Bluefin uses and centralized those into a packages repo so that we could just go into Copper, turn on EPEL builds for all the extra stuff, and then it should come out. And it did. And it took about, I don't know, a month, Tulip, something like that, to do that. And what makes Bluefin very interesting to my target audience is what we call a developer mode, which is a little prompt that you say, I'm a developer, and you hit enter. What it's actually doing in the background is rebasing you to a separate image. And I basically designed what I wanted to be the perfect cloud native workstation for my community. So I just came from KubeCon, largest one ever, 12,500 people. It's all the kind of folks that they live, eat, breathe, sleep containers all day long and development. So I wanted to make a workstation image for them. So I include things like Docker. As I surveyed people, I was like, what do you like? Docker or Podman, right? And sysadmin folks will say, I prefer Docker. App developers will tell you they do Podman. And if you talk to platform teams, they tell you I have to support both. My life sucks. So that's what I'm going to do. So we actually ship them both on there. I ship Homebrew on there because my target audience right now, a lot of the people that do this kind of work are they're on Macs overwhelmingly. So I wanted to give them that Homebrew experience. There's a little tool there called DevPod, which lets you get that GitHub code spaces experience. LoftSH makes this, except you can connect to any cloud or just SSH to a machine and have that full GitHub code like experience, because I wanted to do that. Ship Podman desktop with all the goodies. And then Bluefin CLI, which is basically a bunch of homebrew pre-configured scripts that give you all the modern tools in your CLI. And long before Ubuntu announced that they were switching to UUtils, I was already doing this. So I like to rattle cages as well. And recently we added Ramalama, which is for local AI development. So what you do is you say Ramalama pull and then the model name. It grabs it from Omalama or whatever, runs the workload in containers, nice and isolated. but crucially also pulls down containers that has either the NVIDIA drivers, the AMD drivers, or the Intel drivers, along with the workload. So depending on what hardware you're on, your stuff is always hardware accelerated, which is really, really neat to me. So we have that. So that's the developer mode. That's kind of the mantra of Bluefin. What it's supposed to be is like for people like, I guess, people like me. And then Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, a few months ago announced they call the NVIDIA GDX, which is kind of a workstation thing designed just for AI developers, where she just pay NVIDIA a bunch of money and they give you dedicated hardware. And it comes with hardware accelerated everything and CUDA and all that stuff. And I said, that's very, very interesting. And then when I looked at the actual software, it was just an old version of Ubuntu. And then they tell you to go Conda install a bunch of stuff. So I was like, man, I think we could bust that out in a weekend. So Tulip and I busted it out in a weekend and just called it Bluefin GDX, which in the container pattern is just from the LTS, except add CUDA. We added Pixie and UV. Pixie gives us a CLI to that Conda ecosystem that the data science nerds are all into. And UV is just like a modern Python thing that everyone's talking about. So when I was hanging out in a room at KubeCon, what would you want in this thing? People really loved UV, so we just added it there. And then include Ramalama, of course, as well. So prior to coming to scale, Ampere had these 128 core ARM workstations, and we were able to get, I think all the CentOS side of the house, I think it was us, Neil, were you with Alma, whoever you were with, and the Meta booth, we got our machines up and running. But the Ubuntu side of the house, our kernels were too old, so they weren't as nice. So this is actually a picture from the ARM booth at KubeCon. We have the demos up and running. People can run local inference and stuff on their machine and see what it's like and totally peg it out. So this is actually live out in the field. As you can tell, I'm basically terrified of this right now. But the actual good stuff is, after talking to the Hyperscale SIG folks, imagine all the stuff you just saw in that last call and was like, what would a desktop built around that stuff look like? Because I didn't want to do this unless I knew there was like something good going on. So, you know, the mantra right now is kind of like, do what the Hyperscale SIG says. We ship, if you see the Georgette Hamilton there, that's my vanilla machine. It just ships with the stock 6.12 kernel. And this bottom here, a kilobator, that's 6.13.8. That is your latest kernel, Neil. So I actually rolled with that kernel at KubeCon on my work machine. So it was rocking and rolling. But we also are taking our time with this. The bootc model, you don't really appreciate it until you've been running a system for a long time and just realize how clean it is. So we are currently in beta and planning on staying in beta probably for a while. We'll investigate in May. We're kind of in F42 ship mode right now. And once we found out that there was interest in GNOME backports, I think Tulip here, we're interested in helping package that kind of stuff, because I think there is a need for a modern desktop. I had talked to people at Red Hat who were like, yeah, our old desktops used to be RHEL-based, and they switched to Fedora at some point. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if you could go the other way. And I would never be interested in doing a CentOS-based thing with traditional packaging. But now that I can kind of seal it at the end in that container image and know that it gets to the end user the way it's intended without them breaking it, then that's what I'm going to do. To give you a little bit of an example of who's using this stuff, this is a etcd maintainer at KubeCon. He's running demos of etcd clusters running on his framework laptop, and there's a photobomb there in the back. This is something that's very interesting. I'm also a Framework Linux ambassador. I'm very interested in talking to Framework about what would an enterprise-grade kind of laptop Halo experience look like. So I'm definitely interested in doing that. So everything I've shown you so far is nothing like an enterprise Linux or Ubuntu LTS at all. So like, what are you doing here, George? I'm doing rolling graphical apps with FlatHub, like Homebrew. Your dev containers is going to be probably Ubuntu, right? Modern kernels and desktops. Like, this is nothing. What have I done? You know, this isn't enterprise at all. Neil, if you want a funny comment, now's your chance.
Burn in hell.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was looking for. So, so who are we designing for? So I actually thought about this a lot, because the traditional desktop has always kind of been there. And more over time, I saw, especially on the desk, I'm talking about desktops here, servers, sure. It almost felt like this bootc model that allows me to bring in what everyone else is building. I can source from anywhere, but be able to kind of stamp it out at the end kind of does make a case for an enterprise workstation kind of scenario. I have worked at a university managing all sorts of fleets and things like that. And it's just really nice to have that centralized way to manage the desktops. At Universal Blue, we gate changes, we've got testing branches, we do all the kind of sysop DevOpsy stuff in order to make managing that stuff easy. But I also didn't just want to make a CentOS desktop because that was going to be boring. So I figured I would shake the snow globe a little bit and bring a little bit of that Bluefin aggressiveness into CentOS. So we're just going to try it because making these things are kind of relatively cheap compared to making a full distro. It's a lot easier to derive from a base image. A traditional EL would be easy. So you could grab a desktop. If you prefer to use pure EPEL packages, throw away all the George crack, you can absolutely do that. And now that Bluefin is RPM'd, it's totally possible for you to derive from Bluefin. Maybe throw away the homebrew stuff if you don't like it. It's just a DNF remove in the container file, just like how you would expect. And generally speaking, I just wanted this to be an example. I wanted it to be a hello world. And I am actually more interested in people developing best practices around bootc, because how you make these, how you test these is actually more important, because organizations are going to have different, NASA isn't going to be like Bluefin time, right? So for me, it's more about getting the ecosystem going around bootc in general, which is just the container pattern, and that makes the CNCF very happy. The one thing I do want you to remember from this talk is github.com ublueOS image template. So this is a template that we've made in GitHub for you. It's got all the goodies. It's got an ISO builder in there for you. It has all of the GitHub actions that have, when you click, it'll automatically start churning, making the images. Every time you accept a pull request and you merge it, a new operating system comes out, and then you just do the update on the laptop, and you're doing that kind of flow. We're planning on adding a bunch of stuff now that we're taking our SBOMs and things very seriously. There'll be an action in there that will automatically, do all that business and generate those for you and all of that kind of good stuff. And all the SIG source stuff is in there. So your images will come out signed and beautiful, and it is amazing. So there's lots of ways to do container files and Docker files. So this is just what we picked. And we thought that would be interesting for folks. And with that, does anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah. Shoot.
All right. So I've been playing with bootc a little bit in the last 2 weeks. Is there going to be an improvement in the install process? Because it's not great right now.
I am infuriated with Anaconda right now. I'm not going to lie. It's a source of frustration for me right now. Yeah, it's a struggle. I don't know if anybody else has any commentary, but. Oh, wow. Everybody loves Anaconda, huh?
I mean, I will confess, I have a soft spot in my heart for Anaconda.
Yeah.
I got something. So this has been a big problem. I'm also working on bootc and particularly trying to get the image builder stuff going. In fact, I'm the one who contributed the boot image builder to the image template you guys saw there, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to streamline the process as much as we can. And as much as we can in Universal Blue and bootc, right? We'll try to get around these things. But I mean, boot image builder is the tool we have right now to build these images. And that's where the crux is.
Yeah. So it mostly works like the bib action that we use, works. You click it and it generates an ISO in 15 minutes. The config is 30 lines. It's amazing. But when you want to add flat packs or stuff in there, now you're going into Anaconda stuff, and all of those PRs have been sitting there, and you're like, oh no, are they gonna productize this eventually? I don't know. I'm waiting.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to smooth it out with us maintaining and building that boot image builder. So that way, when you build, you just get the ISO artifact, and we'll figure out all the rest.
I'm ready.
right? We like that, but we
Yeah.
do need better ways of going about building that image because it is tough. Totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those of us on bare metal, the no instructions for what partitions you would like is a little tricky. As historically, I put var log on its own volume, and the install instructions for the disk layout are missing from bootc.
Yeah. Usually on my laptop, I give it the whole disk.
Use Btrfs. Then this problem is so less.
I don't. That doesn't solve a problem we have though. Like I don't need this. Oh man, why do you got to argue about Btrfs at this time of the day, Neil?
Dude, because space contention is a real problem no matter what you're doing. And it's especially bad if you're doing all the flat packs and all the weird stuff with the Linux brews and whatever, right? That's
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, so the transparent Z standard compression would be nice.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
you're not, and when you separate with the subvolumes, you're not segmenting your disk storage at the same time. So you get that full pool of space without having to worry about anything. Like that's the reason that Fedora adopted in the first place, was because people were running out of disk space installing flat packs. That was the reason to switch to Btrfs.
Don't worry, Neil. I left out that we're adding the ZFS module in there for you too. Yeah. But it's close. It's installing. Like it's actually installing from the ISO. I just refreshed the ISOs this morning. It's just the other stuff. I think can't you just pass it a Kickstarter or whatever with the disk layout that you want?
Yeah.
Like if we wanted to, we can make it do Btrfs, but we'd have to drop the vanilla kernel, which we probably should anyway, right?
Yeah, you should drop the vanilla kernel anyway. You like as soon as you start doing more things, like you're doing a lot of container stuff, and I fully expect that at some point you're going to do something interesting around the fact that we have Waydroid support enabled in the Hyperscale kernel. Like as soon as you start integrating more features and functions and people expect those things to just consistently work, you're probably not going to be in a position to rely on the stock RHEL kernel anymore. Like that's pretty much the reason why we don't in Hyperscales, because like the things people need and want are just not available in the base RHEL kernel, and there's not really an avenue to have them enabled.
Right. And by the time Anaconda's ready, 6.12, we'll be done with that. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in case anyone asks, do not try to rebase between a CentOS-based system and a Fedora-based system. It does work going one direction, but not the other way. So we're just going to tell people do not do that.
You can only go to Fedora. The other way around is not a happy place.
Right. And even then, I'm too scared. So we're not going to support that.
But on the disk layout end, RPM OS tree, for example, does have a recommended disk layout in their install guide. And it says basically you need a giant var and don't do weird things with user. But just
so those rules don't apply when you're using Btrfs with subvolumes. No. Like that whole disk layout recommendation that RPM OS tree, and technically this applies to bootc as well, does not apply if you're using Btrfs. None of it matters. So if you're using Btrfs on your installs, then all these problems go away, and you don't have to really think about anything.
So Neil, here's a quick question: how fast do you plan to update your kernel? Like, are you going to do a major point release behind? Are you going to? I'm
tracking Fedora stable basically. Okay. So I try to do it after the test week is over for Fedora. That's when I evaluate and do rebases. Sometimes it takes longer because things are broken for whatever reason, but usually that's the point. So like right now, the 6.14 test week I think is concluding this week. Mm-hmm. So then after the test results, I'll go look at them and then I'll evaluate and start looking at the rebase and do all the things. But yeah, that's basically the way I look at it. Is I try to follow Fedora, and I do rebases shortly after, basically when Justin Forbes submits the updates for the new kernel to Fedora. That's at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm reasonably confident things are probably fine. All the major things are shaken out and stuff like that. Because one time I didn't do that, and we had broken AMD GPU for like 6 weeks, and so
yeah.
I don't really want to do, and as an AMD GPU user, I don't like that very much. So
I agree. Yeah, so what we did on the Fedora Bluefins is we can pin to specific kernels, and we avoided 6.13 for most of the cycle, actually, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's why it
Yeah.
was so late before I rebased to 6.13 was because there was numerous problems with Fuse. There was AMD GPU issues. There was random memory corruption problems, and it was just like, my goodness, this is a terrifying kernel release. So like,
Yeah.
we didn't rebase until basically last week, and that's the reason why I only have it on 10 right now, is because I had only had enough time to pump it out for 10, and I hadn't even had a chance to go look at doing it for 9. And so I think 6.14 is going to be far less scary, but early results look promising. We'll see.
Yeah. Is there anything we could do to help with like the Anaconda thing, Sean? Feel useless.
Also, for what it's worth, regarding Anaconda, Hyperscale maintains a fork of the Anaconda code base where we add stuff on top to fix things for our use case. So that's also a thing.
I will investigate that immediately.
I actually told Tulip about this, I think last week, because they were talking to me about like, how do we do the installation stuff and whatever. And I was like, yeah, we ship our own Anaconda because we need to restore ButterFS support. So we re-upgrade all the storage stack, turn the features back on, and add extra profile support to be able to make it available and things like that. So all those things are in place. And like, this is why the Hyperscale bring up has been kind of slow, is because I am going through all the components and requalifying everything as I bring it all back up. And yes, I do need Anaconda Live for the live ISOs, because that, and we build it for Hyperscale 10. Like, that component is built. So yeah, no, it's all there. Like, we ship everything. If there's something missing from the EL Anaconda, you need it turned on, just file a ticket on the Hyperscale SIG and we'll go look into it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. All right. I'm in.
Awesome. Are there more questions? We are running right up to the next talk, so
Perfect.
we had padding in the schedule.
Yeah. Other Sean, is there anything we could do with Anaconda that's useful?
Not to my knowledge right now.
Okay.
I'm working on the image stuff right now.
Okay, sweet. All right, we should hang out then.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing defeated me this week, man. I'm a broken man.
I decided to shift to the SIF stuff, the SBOM stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's been
Dope.
tough.
Sweet. Well, I hope you all like this. I've been running it on my laptop, and it's killer stuff, man. It's just really good. And I guess I'm out.